The Final Frontier: Why Black Women Find It Easier to Reach Space Than the C Suite. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm honored to share with you some extraordinary insights from my recent interview with Denise Cotton, a visionary advocate and groundbreaking researcher whose work on leadership barriers facing Black women has fundamentally transformed how we understand workplace equity. Denise isn't just documenting problems. She's creating solutions that ripple through organizations worldwide. Her fearless truth telling and data driven approach have opened doors for countless women while challenging powerful institutions to live up to their stated values. In a world of performative allyship, Denise Cotton stands as a beacon of authentic commitment to justice. I want to begin with a fact from our conversation that literally stopped me in my tracks. A reality so jarring it challenges everything we think we know about progress in America. There are currently more Black women who have traveled to space as astronauts than there are Black women serving as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Let that sink in for a moment. It is literally easier for a Black woman to leave Earth's atmosphere, to exit our planet entirely, than to break through the corporate ceiling here on the ground. This isn't just a startling comparison, it's a profound indictment of how we've structured our organizations, our leadership pipelines, and our deeply entrenched notions of who belongs at the top. When we consider that NASA and the aerospace industry have historically been dominated by white men, the fact that Black women have made more progress there than in corporate boardrooms should shake us to our core. Now, you might be thinking, but surely we've made progress. We talk about diversity constantly now. There are initiatives everywhere. And yes, there has been movement. But as Denise Cotton's meticulous research reveals, that progress has been painfully uneven, frustratingly slow, and perpetually vulnerable to backsliding the moment attention shifts elsewhere. Let me share with you three critical insights from our conversation that help explain this persistent gap. First, sponsorship and advocacy matter enormously. The lack of senior sponsors with real influence continues to be a major barrier for Black women professionals. Without someone in the room advocating for you when decisions about promotions, special assignments, and opportunities are being made, advancement becomes exponentially more difficult. Mentorship is valuable, but sponsorship is transformative. Second, progress isn't evenly distributed. Despite visible advances in some sectors, systemic barriers like pay gaps, microaggressions, and policy rollbacks mean that true equity remains elusive for many talented Black leaders. The path isn't just steep, it's riddled with invisible tripwires. And third, speaking up changes trajectories. Overcoming fear and advocating for yourself can open doors, not just personally, but also by inspiring others in your community or organization. Your voice matters more than you know. These insights aren't just theoretical, they are grounded in real stories and substantive research that Denise has painstakingly documented. Consider the journey of Ursula Burns. In 2009, Burns became the first Black woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company when she took the helm at Xerox. This was a breakthrough moment that came more than 5 decades after the Fortune 500 list began. Burns' journey is remarkable, not just for its outcome, but for how she got there. Raised by a single mother in public housing projects in New York City, Burns rose through engineering roles at Xerox before moving into executive management. Her path was marked by resilience against both overt discrimination and subtle exclusionary practices that threatened to derail her at every turn. What made the difference? Among other factors, Burns benefited from strong mentorship, including crucial sponsorship from her predecessor, who recognized her brilliance and advocated for her advancement. She cultivated operational excellence and consistently advocated for inclusion across all ranks. Burns led Xerox through major transformation while championing diversity initiatives internally. Today, she remains an influential voice on inclusive leadership. Her success highlighted both what's possible and how rare such breakthroughs remain for Black women aspiring to top tier business roles. But here's the sobering reality that Denise Cotton emphasized. Since Burns' historic appointment in 2009, progress has been glacial. Recent research from McKinsey and Lenin.org shows that over 80% of Black professional women aspire to senior leadership, but less than 4% reach C suite positions. This isn't a pipeline problem, it's a recognition and advancement problem. The barriers are both structural and interpersonal. Black women report a persistent lack of influential sponsors and champions. They experience frequent microaggressions that drain energy and erode confidence. They are often overlooked despite strong qualifications and proven track records of excellence. Some companies have recognized this problem and implemented targeted sponsorship programs, pairing rising talent with executives empowered to advocate for their advancement. Organizations piloting these approaches see higher retention rates among diverse talent pools. But widespread adoption lags far behind the rhetoric about equity. This disconnect between words and actions became particularly evident after 2020, when many organizations made bold pledges about racial justice. But as Denise Cotton pointed out in our conversation, too many failed on follow through when it came time for hard decisions around promotions or layoffs. The commitment proved shallow when tested. Some companies have made progress in middle management due specifically to structured sponsorship efforts, but they continue to see drop offs before reaching executive ranks. This pattern reveals an uncomfortable truth. Access alone isn't enough without active advocacy. Getting in the door means little if you're never invited to the table where decisions are made. The challenges don't stop at corporate America. Even pathways long considered more accessible have proven vulnerable. Federal government employment has traditionally been seen as an avenue towards stability and upward mobility among educated Black women. Many were attracted by equal opportunity mandates, not always present in the private sector. But recent policy reversals have dismantled DEI programs en masse, with over 69,000 jobs cut since January 2025, disproportionately affecting positions held by Black women. The response to these setbacks has been instructive. Advocacy groups mobilized rapidly, documenting impacts publicly, pushing back via legal channels where possible, and building networks supporting displaced workers' transitions into new industries or entrepreneurship ventures. While job losses were severe short term setbacks for thousands individually, the collective response helped shine light on vulnerabilities tied too closely to shifting political winds rather than lasting institutional change. Black women's overrepresentation among federal employees reflects decades long pursuit of fair treatment denied elsewhere, with each rollback threatening hard earned gains. Yet this situation galvanized renewed activism around DEI protections beyond government, inspiring similar organizing within private sector workplaces now facing comparable threats. It demonstrates both structural risks facing even secure career paths and how speaking up collectively can spark broader reforms benefiting future generations. What these examples reveal is something profound about how progress actually happens. It's rarely linear, it's almost never given freely, and it requires both individual courage and collective action sustained over time. As Denise Cotton emphasized in our conversation, the journey toward true equity isn't just about numbers or representation, though those matter enormously. It's about fundamentally reimagining how we structure opportunity, how we recognize talent, and how we distribute power. This brings me to what I believe is the most powerful insight from our discussion: the transformative potential of sponsorship. When we talk about sponsorship, we're not just talking about mentorship. A mentor offers advice, a sponsor puts their own reputation and political capital on the line to advocate for someone else's advancement. They don't just say, you should apply for that promotion. They say in closed door meetings, I believe this person is ready, and here's why. They nominate you for opportunities you didn't even know existed. They ensure your voice is heard when you're not in the room. The absence of this kind of advocacy has been particularly devastating for Black women professionals. Without sponsors willing to champion their capabilities, many find themselves perpetually overlooked despite stellar qualifications and contributions. But here's where I see hope. Sponsorship is something each of us can participate in, regardless of our position. If you have any degree of influence or visibility in your organization, you can use it to amplify someone else's voice, highlight their contributions, or nominate them for opportunities they deserve. This is especially powerful when it crosses lines of difference. When those with established privilege and access use their position to create pathways for those historically excluded, the entire system begins to shift. So I leave you with this challenge. What would happen if every person in this room committed not only to speaking up for themselves, but also actively sponsoring another underrepresented colleague whose potential deserves amplification? Who could you advocate for tomorrow? Imagine the ripple effects. If each of us identified just one person whose voice isn't being heard, whose contributions aren't being recognized, whose potential isn't being nurtured, and we decided to become their champion, not just offering advice, but actively creating opportunities, highlighting their work, and advocating for their advancement when they're not in the room. The cumulative effect would be revolutionary. We wouldn't just be changing individual trajectories, though that matters enormously. We would be beginning to reshape the very systems that have made it easier for a Black woman to reach space than to reach the C suite. This is how transformation happens, not through grand pronouncements or diversity statements, but through consistent, intentional actions that gradually shift the distribution of opportunity and power. The final frontier isn't space, it's right here on Earth, in boardrooms and executive suites where decisions affecting millions are made every day. And just as we've conquered the impossible by sending humans beyond our atmosphere, we can and must conquer the seemingly impossible task of creating workplaces where talent alone determines how far you can go. The question is not whether we can do this. The question is whether we will choose to do it. Starting today, starting with you. Thank you